countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?
Yes, I do.
Mr. President.
Did you see that? You saw that, right? You saw that, right? Like his head turned like a deer in headlights for a moment. Wait, what? He didn't expect that. You can see it. Look at him.
Yes, I do.
Mr. President, what?
Just checked for a second to make sure that was really Trump. He was like, wait a second. Is that Trump? Is that Keith Kellogg in a skin suit? No, that's Trump. Is this the full interview? Okay. I hope it is. Let's see what Zelensky is saying to the right-wingers at home.
Are you willing to provide Ukraine with the security guarantees the same way as European allies do?
That's later down the road. We'll be talking about that. Hopefully, we'll be in a position to talk about that a little bit later on. It's a little bit too early to answer that question.
Russia is not doing well. With this, during this war, we need more pressure and more sanctions. And I hope with the United States, first of all, and Europe.
Meeting today at the UN. Joining me now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Mr. President, welcome back to Special Report.
Thanks so much, Bret. Thank you.
What did you take away from your meeting with President Trump at the UN today?
First of all, that it's very important that positions of our teams are closer.
God, his English has improved so much during the war
Than any time before. That's good that the details of the situation on the battlefield from intelligence of both countries are similar. And mostly this is good because it always depends on the position and on information. The future decisions, how to speak with Russians, I mean the President Trump teams, when they speak with Russians, from what position? From the position of pressure or from other position? It depends on the position on battlefield, position with economy in Russia, position battlefield of Russia and Ukraine. For example, today we share that this September was difficult for our army, but it was successful really because 360 kilometers we deoccupied it. It's not big victory, but it means that we are not losing. This is important.
Your relationship with President Trump seems to have improved. Is that fair to say?
I think we have a better relation than before. And I think we didn't have a close relation because we didn't have maybe time. I don't know. I don't know other reasons. It's good that we have often phone calls.
Maybe because I got jumped at the White House. I mean, look, people can talk about whether or not Zelensky approached Trump in the right way, in the way that you approach a king in the king's court to do the special dance, but that you need to entertain them. Maybe you need to do a hop, skip, jump, and a fart to make them laugh. I don't know. But what Zelensky said in that meeting ended up ringing 100% true.
Burns is an immoral,
morally corrupt, bankrupt man. J.D. Vance and the rest of these fools were trying to push the idea that all we had to do was make a little investment in Ukraine and the Russians wouldn't invade again. And he said, look, you can try to make them do a deal, but the Russians have to stand by the deal. And they violated every agreement. And he listed off the amount of times they violated agreements. And then he got all this pushback. It's like, oh, come on, you should be thankful, even though he thanked them at the start. And all that like hubbub about him needing to wear a suit and he wasn't that thankful. He thanked them at the start. It's just nobody included that in any of the edits that were shared online because people were trying to be purposely deceitful, deceptive when it comes to what he was saying. And so Zelensky, what he said, though, about the Russians not respecting the agreements and, needing to bring them to the table and having more to stop them from doing it again, all they had to respond with is, oh, economic investments. What happens within months of that meeting? American businesses in Kiev get bombed, including Boeing offices, an American aerospace company. So, I mean, he was right about the investment not being enough. He was right about the need for deterrence. And he was right about the ceasefires that the United States tried to sign with Russia, like the civilian ceasefire, immediately being violated. I mean, how embarrassing would that be in a regular news cycle? You negotiate a ceasefire with the Russians that's violated within hours? After saying you would fix it in 24?
and meetings. And I think the fact that Putin was lying to President Trump so many times also made a difference between us.
You know, I know your staff read the post from President Trump that he posted on Truth Social after your meeting, but in part...
I mean, we talked about this before. Putin making Trump look like a fool is something Trump can't really dance around. And if he keeps telling him, don't worry, we're so close to peace, but you never get any closer, at a certain point, you have to start asking questions. And I think maybe Trump, after 9 months, instead of his 24 hours, he started to ask some questions. Even though now, when asked, do you still trust Putin? Give me another month. Before it was 2 weeks, multiple 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. We've been promoted. We're now at a month.
He said this: after getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia.
It is very good for Zelensky that this is probably one of the better effects. Very good for Zelensky, very good for Ukraine that this message is being broadcasted across American airwaves. Basically, Donald Trump, one of the chief lost causers for Ukraine, calling it a lost cause, essentially saying it isn't one.
Military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form. With time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Are you surprised to hear that?
A little bit. A little bit. I mean, this, I'm sure in my people, in my army, and I'm sure in strengthening of the in support of the United States. But President...
By the way, that post, this is him talking to American press. Let me read you what he says to Ukrainian press. At the end of his briefing, reporter Mark Stone asked Volodymyr Zelensky whether today's position by Trump, published on Truth Social, was a big change. He replied, Trump is changing the rules of the game. This is a big shift. This Trump post is a big turn. So Zelensky's hyping it up to Ukrainian press. Like, of course, that's Zelensky being hopeful, trying to find the best way for his country. But how much he really believes it, I don't know. But it certainly would be good for him. It would be good for his country.
War started is very much an option. Are you surprised to hear that?
A little bit. A little bit. I mean, this, I'm sure in my people, in my army, and I'm sure in strengthening of the in support of the United States. But President Trump was more positive in it, and he showed that he wants to support Ukraine to the very end. So we understand now that we are ready to finish this war as quick as possible. And he wants, and I want, and our people want. But he understands that Putin doesn't want, and he understands that he is not winning, but he says to everybody that he will win. And I see very, it was a little bit surprise for me, you're right. I was very positive signals from the side that Trump and America will be with us to the end of the war. Yes, we will see.
Yeah.
Right? We will see, but God bless, it will be so.
Was there a commitment to put more pressure on Russia, on Vladimir Putin?
Yes, President Trump understands that we need more pressure on him. There's not enough pressure from Europe. They are our partners, but it's not enough. We need pressure directly on Putin, on the...
He's not discussing... Well, listen.
Russia, on Vladimir Putin?
Yes, President Trump understands that we need...
He says, yes, he understands that we need more pressure. But if you read the post, pressure from who? Because the pressure he seems to be talking about is largely European, where the economic levers that the United States could pull are still there. There's still presidential drawn-out authority, billions of dollars of aid that could be sent tomorrow. It could be approved tomorrow. And they're the only ones that can produce the air defense systems to support Ukraine. And they're the only ones that can give the approval for Ukraine to use the long-range missiles to target Russian energy production and Russian military factories. Not only American-produced missiles, but French and British due to the fact that they have American components. America is at a crucial... Hell, even when it comes to shipping the decommissioned Abrams from Australia, that required American approval due to the fact that they're Abrams. And America held that for a bit to add pressure against the Ukrainians. So at a certain point, yeah, Europe does need to take responsibility that it's their backyard. Their defense is first and foremost their priority. But the United States has to bridge that gap, or it's going to be a lot more painful than necessary if we can attain success at all. Again, the United States simply is the only one that can provide the air defense systems, the air defense munitions, in order to bridge the gap. And that American artillery production that we invested money to expand specifically to help Ukraine and to adjust to this more intense interstate warfare and the reality of it in 21st century, we should use that investment. We should reap the fruit that we planted.
More pressure on him. There's not enough pressure from the Europe. They are our partners, but it's not enough. We need pressure directly on Putin, on their energy network, on their financing system, on banking system, and etc. We spoke with details about it, and we count on sanctions from the United States side.
You know, since President Putin met with President Trump in Alaska, we put up this graphic. Military strikes in your country targeting civilians, more than 500. Casualties, 260 plus. Drone strikes, 2,100. Armed clashes, 2,700. It's
the most civilian casualties of the war since 2022, since the very start, early 2022.
Increased exponentially.
Increased.
What do you think happened after that meeting in Alaska?
You know, President Trump tried not to close, you know, this diplomatic possibility of negotiations with Putin. He didn't pressure on him before. He wanted to really have negotiations, to really have trilateral meeting between us. And but Putin, as always, he just, I think, uses the situation. He just used the situation. He got images with President Trump. He sold to his audience, Russian society. You see, I'm shakeable with the United States. It means that we can continue. So it's different position. President Trump wanted to show Putin that he's ready for negotiations, that we are ready to make some progress. But Putin, you know, he's feeling it's not enough pressure.
The next step was going to be
I didn't know how to answer that question because he doesn't want to say Trump made a stupid decision to bring Putin there. So instead he concentrated, look, Trump saw it as negotiating. Putin saw it as a delaying tactic. They view it differently. So it's different things. It's a very pillow-fisted way to talk about it. But I think it's the smart way to talk about it. I mean, like, I don't think Zelensky needs to be like shooting from the free throw line, you know, just halfway down the court, just trying to sink it for fun right now, you know. Take what you can get. Don't risk it.
Feeling it's not enough pressure.
The next step was going to be a one-on-one meeting between Vladimir Putin and yourself. So right now, that does not look like it's happening.
Yeah, because he afraid such meeting. He's not afraid me. I mean, he afraid such meeting because he has to have some outcome. But his outcome for today is to continue the war. Of course, he said to President Trump, and I think sometimes when they have conversations, Russian teams and American teams, they say that they want peace, but it's not true.
Since that time, he also has gone into other NATO countries. 3 jets into Estonia, drones into Poland. Do you think that's part of a plan? Today, President Trump said those NATO allies should shoot down those planes and drones.
Denmark was yesterday Denmark.
Yes.
Baltics, Nordics, Romania already, a lot of countries. So what Putin is doing for today, he is, first of all, his signals to NATO. He wants to feel how they can defend their countries.
That is 100% true, without a doubt, that the Russians are 100% probing European air defense systems. How quick the Italians can scramble jets in Estonia seems like 12 minutes. And, you know, how European air defense systems and defense policy would react to this type of stuff. And, you know, they might be satisfied with some of the answers that they've gotten.
and he feels that they can't. Not enough air defense. They are not well trained. It's understandable. They are very good professional guys, but they don't have war. Russia in this war more than 10 years.
So if these attacks are increasing, if these excursions and intrusions into other NATO countries are increasing, what do you think it's going to take to change Putin's mind that he can't win militarily or that this war needs to come to an end?
I think he wants it. He wants to go to other territories. As I said to my colleagues, I said them 1 year ago, look, don't wait when he will finish the war in Ukraine and he will continue somewhere. He can continue somewhere, not finishing in Ukraine, because he understands that he needs for his war machine, for his factories, for his close circle of businessmen who are in defending military sector, have money, big money. He wants to show that they will continue. And that's why he postponed meetings, any kind of meetings on the level of leaders with me, trilateral, bilateral, doesn't matter how many leaders.
He invited you to Moscow, you invited him to Kyiv. Are you willing to meet directly with him in a neutral spot?
I didn't invite him to Kyiv. I said, look, if you don't want to meet with me, of course, on the place of Putin, I mean this from his side, of course he will invite me to Moscow. It's just for postponed the meeting. That's it. I said, this is the same if I will invite him to Kyiv. Yes, he has the choice. And Trump teams, my team, Trump team, my team, Europeans, including Macron and other leaders, and Turkey president. I know that President Erdogan was in Europe. Yeah. All of us, all our teams proposed meeting in Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, in Europe neutral.
Look, if they say another location like Oman, they might actually take them up on it, and then they'll have to have a meeting, and then that's a disaster. Because when the Russians said, we'll meet with you in Istanbul, Putin did, Zelensky said, okay, I'll go. Zelensky went, and Putin didn't show. They sent a bunch of lower-level officials and then told them they'll fight them for 21 years, like they did Sweden, right? Warfare has changed a bit since then. But there was no real engagement on negotiation towards peace. The only thing that came from that was larger prisoner exchanges, which is good, but does not get us anywhere closer to peace. We are no closer to peace now than we were 9 months ago. So there's no negotiating that Putin's going to be willing to do. So because he wants to drag on the war. If he does sit down and negotiate, that'll be clear to everyone that it's him. So instead, he continues to throw every reason he can. Zelensky's illegitimacy, the need for us to have lower level meetings first. Well, it should be in Moscow instead of there. Moscow is a non-starter. The Russians have tried to kill Zelensky so many times. The idea of having this meeting in Moscow is preposterous. I mean, imagine like, could you imagine like an Iranian-Iraqi peace conference hosted in Baghdad during the Iran-Iraq war? It's ridiculous, especially considering the multiple attempts on Zelensky's life. It's disputed how many times Zelensky's had attempts on his life, but American intelligence and Ukrainian intelligence and European intelligence agrees that there have been multiple. And who do you think did that, huh? At the start of the war in an attempt to destabilize the state. It was the Russians. So him doing the conference in Moscow is a non-starter. The typical practice is to go to a state like Sweden, or in this case, maybe that won't make more sense, but Oman, maybe Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Find some third party that can act as some sort of neutral arbiter, and there you have negotiations. But that is too realistic, so they have to stay away from it and instead say, how about we have the conference in Vladivostok?
Like Austria, Switzerland. So we said, even if you want somewhere like Kazakhstan, I mean...
You're ready.
Yeah, we're ready. That's it.
So I talked to President Erdogan yesterday here at the UN. I asked him about his thoughts about how long this might take. Here he is. Do you think the war ends soon?
I don't really believe that it will.
And that's not a good thing for the world.
İyi bir haber değil. it's not good news. And we thinking about this in this manner is heavy on our hearts.
Says he has good relations with you and with Russia, but he doesn't think it's ending anytime soon. Do you agree with him?
Because he knows my attitude, that we are ready to finish the war. And he understands that Putin doesn't want to finish the war. And he understands that not enough pressure on Putin. Really, I know that he understands it. We need pressure. From whom? United States, President Trump. And I think that President Trump can change the attitude of Xi Jinping to this war. Because China, I mean, we don't feel that China wants to finish this war.
China, India, they're all contributing here. European nations, the president said, need to get off oil, but need to do it with the U.S. Do you think that that is going to happen?
I think
essentially Trump wants Europe to be buying American LNG export instead of Russian exported product, which was always one of the benefits of the war for the United States, is the fact that now we get to dominate in European energy markets as an exporter, which is something that I don't know why Trump hasn't talked about more excessively, considering, you know, his crusade, or at least his propagandized crusade for energy dominance, and his history of attacking Russian energy projects in Europe.
I think Iran will never be on our side, because we'll never be on the side of the United States. I think India mostly with us. Yes, we had these questions with energy, but I think that President Trump can manage it with Europeans, make more close and strong relations with India. And I think we have to do everything not to withdraw Indians, and they will change their attitude to Russian energy sector, I'm sure. With China is more difficult, because it's not, for today, it's not in their interest to not to support Russia.
President Trump has indicated that any sort of peace deal, if it comes, with Ukraine and Russia, would end up with Ukraine losing some territory to Russia. Have you accepted that reality, or what concessions do you think, if you got to a negotiating table, you're willing to make?
First of all, it's important that today we had good conversation with President Trump, and I think he understands for today that we can't just swap territories. It's not fair. It's not real.
So you think his position has changed?
Yes, I think so. And God bless.
There should be a question about exactly where his position is now that he's talking about, I think Ukraine can win and take back this territory. Because even if it's not, well, we're going to take back everything that's been lost in 2022. Trump did say at one point, and again, we're dealing with a man that wakes up on either side of the bed, and that determines his position sometimes. But he did say that at one point that he wanted to negotiate Ukraine back as much land as they could. But then it just seemed like they quickly resided themselves that they couldn't negotiate shit. So if that position has changed with increased pressure, that would be something notable, especially if it's anywhere close to where their border started at the start of the war, as Trump says in the Truth Social post.
I really count on this, on continuation of his attitude to the territorial question and the question of our sovereignty at the end of the days. And I think that it's not about territories, it's about the position of Putin. He will continue. If we will give them more that he really wants, he will continue. So the question how to stop the war is just to stop Putin's ambitions, to change his position to this war.
You and I have talked, sat down together many times since the beginning of this war. Take a listen.
That will not be the last war in the world. It will be the first of those future biggest wars in the world.
Do you think Putin would stop if you don't get this funding? Would he make a deal? Would you make a deal?
It's not about financing It's about the morality. He has to understand that all the world needs peace, and all the world will not give him possibility to occupy Ukraine. We are ready for peace, but we have to be in strong position.
From the front lines to D.C. to here in New York, it's 43 months.
Thank you that you've been with us all these years.
Yeah, asking the questions, and you've been answering. 43 months of war now, fourth year. Your people have to be weary and tired, and troops have got to be wiped out. They're, obviously steadfast, and as President Trump talked about this, pushing back Russia when they were supposed to win in just a matter of days. How are your troops holding up? How is your country holding up?
Morale is about where it was a year ago. I mean, it's, people, but that's not to say it's in a good position. That's to say that, it's been in a slump, but it's been in that slump for some time. But it's kind of a recognized slump of like, well, what's the alternative? When support gets cut, whether your fight is questioned in its validity, like all these things, especially when the pathways to victory are reliant on foreign backers, can be heavily dependent upon the stability of foreign support. And with somebody like Donald Trump, that stability is not there. That's what I cared about in reference to Ukraine when it came to the 2024 election. Stability. And that's not what we got.
Very difficult position, of course. But from the side of morality, we are on our land. It's our home. We are surviving, but we can't lose. We can't lose. Otherwise, we will lose our independence.
For the people around the world, including here in the U.S., who are concerned about corruption inside your country, who are concerned about where all the money is going, who are concerned that you're not holding elections because you're in this emergency time. Politico wrote this. Your party, there's frustration growing. There have been growing grumbles within your party ranks about your highly personalized method of rule and your tendency to be dismissive of Parliament, plus the move against anti-corruption agencies still rankles some of your own lawmakers. For those people concerned about that, what do you say?
I don't really like how that question was asked. It's not that I'm angry that he asked those questions. I just feel like every single one of those questions deserves its own segment. If anything, my problem here is Bret Baier isn't giving enough time to critique Zelensky. It should be, if you're going to ask about the anti-corruption thing, the answer is going to be, oh, we reversed that, and that's going to be its own discussion. If you want to ask about the elections, he's going to maybe make a comparison to Winston Churchill in World War II, talk about Ukrainian election law, talk about what the opposition wants, talk about how once the fighting stops, there'll be an election. Like all of these things, or like where the money goes. You would talk about inspectors and monitors. These all deserve their own segment. But there's only a minute. There's only a minute left here in the interview, and the last little bit is like, it's Sean Hannity saying help Fox News. So you got like a minute left to answer all that. It's a little bit dragging it a bit.
It's not true. All the anti-corruption reforms being voted by this parliament by majority. Majority is our party. Everything, every changing, every independence of anti-corruption infrastructure was voted during all these years, even during the war. And all the European institutions who are also always support this infrastructure, they know it. Because only majority voted for these laws. Even if we will change and find a way how to change, we need security for these elections. For example, we are ready if we will have ceasefire. Even if it's difficult according to our constitution.
You'll hold elections.
We can. Okay, if we can do with our partners, of course, with
security guarantees.
Security guarantees.
Mr. President, we appreciate you coming on a busy day like this to the studio, and we'll always welcome you back on Special Report.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you, Bret.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
Okay. I think that was a really good interview by Zelensky. One of his probably better Western interviews on a right-wing news program. Again, that ending, like leaving a bunch of those question marks at the end, I feel like they could have been better answered. I feel like it could have been better segmented. I feel like you could have even had more time to critique Zelensky and get some of these questions answered that people have at home for what they've read on like random Twitter threads. But I think at the end, Bret kind of, scuffed it a little bit. But at the end of the day, he is restricted by the avenue he's on. This is why I'm into alternative media. This is why I'm into streaming. If I want to say something, I can talk as long as I want, and I'm not going to have to cut for a Charmin Bears commercial. Either way, though, I think that was a really decent interview by Zelensky. Really good job. And I mean, if this is a start of things to change and come with Trump, I mean, that's certainly something. That'd be a positive, but I'm not going to hold my breath. We got a few more things to look at. I wanted to take a look at Donald Trump's conversation with the president of the European Union, Ursula von der Leyen, and their discussion about specifically the import of Russian energy export, which helps fund the invasion of Ukraine into Europe, as the Russians have, they used to dominate the European energy market. Now they still supply it, but not as dominant. Used to be 40% of their product came from Russia. Now it's like 19, still pretty significant, still helping Russia fund the war. And so this became a topic of conversation. And this is something that the Trump administration and Howard Lutnick have been pressuring the Europeans on.
Madam President, how soon do you think that Europe can stop buying Russian oil and gas fluid like President Trump has asked for?
Yeah, President Trump is absolutely right. We're on it. We have reduced already massively the gas supply from Russia, completely gotten out of Russian coal, and massively also reduced the oil supply, but there's still some coming to the European continent. So what we do now, we put sanctions out to those ports where, for example, LNG is coming from Russia. And we want to put tariffs on oil supplies that are still coming to the European Union. So we are really getting after the last bits of oil and gas coming from Russia to the European Union. We want to get rid of it.
Liquefied natural gas going through Indian shipping containers. Sometimes they're ships that are not necessarily formally registered. Shaky business. Trump seemed to be, I don't know if he's satisfied with the answer. He's just listening.
The European Union. So we are really getting after the last bits of oil and gas coming from Russia to the European Union. We want to get rid of it.
I can't really tell if he seems satisfied at all. Completely nonplussed about it. One other clip. I wanted to show you guys a conversation that Keith Kellogg, who was supposed to be Trump's Ukraine peace envoy, but was usurped by Steve Witkoff. He had a conversation with the Finnish president on the bylines of the sidelines of the European Union. And during that conversation, Keith Kellogg seemingly endorsed the strong position of Radoslaw Sikorski on Russian empire and the need for Russian empire to die and their dreams of empire to die before peace to come to Europe. And that if their jets enter airspace, they should be shot down. Keith Kellogg backed this up, saying, "You have been warned, so don't whine if your jets are shot down in NATO airspace."
All good. Hello, everyone. Hello. Well, we're battling. Thanks for all your work. We'll continue. We'll continue. Just, I thought what Sikorsky said yesterday was really good, too. It wasn't very soft, that's for sure. I will tell you, sir, we're just going to have, the West is going to have to take a harder role. I mean, it's going to have to raise the level of concern what it is.
So a little bit of a clip there, if you could see this conversation between Keith Kellogg and the Finnish president, with Keith Kellogg's position, despite being the man who said that the Europeans needed to be, that the Ukrainians needed to be beaten like a barnyard animal into submission to listen to the president of the United States. Seemingly now, he's an advocate of a stronger stance against the Russians. What that stance is going to be, what it's going to be actionable, what's going to come from that, that's what matters. If they keep talking big game and not delivering, eventually their talk is going to be ignored entirely, outside of the fact that it's already not deterring them. I think that with that, I've covered everything I wanted to cover today. I don't think I have anything else.